The next operation that you can perform on tables or relations is the Cartesian product of two relations. Let me explain Cartesian product using an example. You consider the two tables, student and instructor. Cartesian product of two relations is represented using the symbol x. So in layman's language, we can say multiplication of two tables. Don't use multiplication, it is layman's language. So the technical term to be used is the Cartesian product of two relations. Now, for the resultant relation, the degree of the resultant relation equals degree of the first relation plus degree of the second relation. So for the resultant relation, number of columns equals 3 plus 2, that is 5. So first you can give the column headings. These are the three columns of the first relation, followed by these are the two columns of the second relation. Now how do you find each and every tuple of the resultant relation? In order to find each and every tuple of the resultant relation, the method is each and every tuple of the first relation should be concatenated with each and every tuple of the second relation. That will give you the tuple of the resultant relation. So let me find the first tuple of the resultant relation. The first tuple of the first relation should be concatenated with the first tuple of the second relation. So concatenation means placing them together. Okay, so when these two tuples are placed together, you will get the first tuple of the resultant relation. Similarly, how do you get the second tuple of the resultant relation? The first tuple of the first relation should be concatenated with the second tuple of the second relation. So when these two tuples are concatenated, placed together, you will get the second tuple of the resultant relation. Again, how do you get the third tuple of the resultant relation? Same method. The second tuple of the first relation should be concatenated with the first tuple of the second relation. So these two tuples should be concatenated or placed together. That will give you the third tuple of the resultant relation. Continue this process. The second tuple of the first relation concatenated with the second tuple of the second relation. This will give you the fourth tuple of the resultant relation. You can see they are placed together. Again, the third tuple of the first relation should be concatenated with the first tuple of the second relation. That will give you the fifth tuple of the resultant relation. So these two tuples are going to be concatenated or placed together. That will give you the resultant tuple. Finally, the third tuple of the first relation should be concatenated with the second tuple of the second relation. That will give you the sixth tuple, the last tuple of the resultant relation. Okay, so these two tuples are concatenated. That will give you the sixth tuple or the last tuple of the resultant relation. So this is how you concatenate. This is how you find the Cartesian product of two relations. Okay, now one interesting property, you can see that the degree of the resultant relation equals the degree of the first relation plus the degree of the second relation. That is, the number of columns of the resultant relation. In the case of Cartesian product, the number of columns of the resultant relation equals the number of columns of the first relation plus the number of columns of the second relation. One more interesting property for Cartesian product, the number of rows of the resultant relation or the cardinality of the resultant relation equals the number of rows of the first relation or the cardinality of the first relation multiplied by the cardinality of the second relation. You can see that for the resultant relation, how many rows are there? 6 rows are there, or cardinality is 6. This is not counted as a row, it's a heading. Okay, so this 6 equals 3. For the first relation, how many rows are there? 3 rows are there. For the second relation, how many rows are there? Only 2 rows are there. So 3 multiplied by 2, that will give you the cardinality of the resultant relation. So for the CBSE class 12 board exam, how will the question appear? Explain Cartesian product of two relations using an example. You can select suitable example, find the Cartesian product, and based on the example, you can explain the concept. Another way of asking the question, you will be provided with two tables and you will be asked to find the Cartesian product of two tables. Remember, the symbol to be used is x, and this is how you find the Cartesian product of two tables. A short answer type question may appear like this. In the case of Cartesian product, degree of the resultant relation equals, your answer should be degree of the first relation plus degree of the second relation. Or another short answer type question, in the case of Cartesian product, cardinality of the resultant relation equals, your answer should be cardinality of the first relation multiplied by cardinality of the second relation. So this is an important operation, studied properly.